Hello, here's a spell, and welcome to another part of a What If I liked. You only did okay on viewership the first time, but what if Midoriya was a Jedi, or I guess Deku, as the name's gonna go? Now, just flash update about the What If Asta was in Fairy Tail. I did get a since that was the one that was requested. Well, I'm gonna try to be putting out more What If videos. And so, yes, in a sense, putting two videos out every other week. Now, the compilation of What If Asa Was in Fairy Tail has done poorly, to say the least. So I might put out a couple more parts to see how it does. But yeah, that one's not done super as a whole. But other than that, I do sincerely hope you enjoy. And let's begin this What If. We begin the day after the first hero course specific class and Midoriya and Bakugo's fight. Midoriya was meditating. He was glad they had won, but he was feeling bad thinking that he should have told Bakugo sooner. After all, he didn't really mean to deceive him. There was a lot to pack down with him having the Force. In fact, it was a concept he knew he would have a hard time explaining to others. Then he looked at the holocron he had brought out. It was one about lightsaber training, and it had helped him start to perfect his style. They called it Form 5, and maybe even some of what they also called Form 3. One being overly defensive, while the other was a mix of offense and defense. But he also was thinking of another thing. How would he use the Force? He already knew he had to disguise what his quirk was. He knew pro heroes who did it. That way the villains wouldn't have as much information on them. But even more than that, he had affinity with the Force beyond the average person. And the holocrons had mentioned powers that were for Jedi Masters, and even more that were classified as controversial or even forbidden. He was the only Jedi on the planet. The only one who went by the philosophy. And it had been nagging at him for a while. He had gotten to a certain level, but couldn't determine if he should observe the holocrons describing those techniques. Or even some of the ones that he had two that were labeled Sith holocrons. And while many of the holocrons described them as being tainted of the dark side, which Midoriya kinda understood. Though it did lead things into question whether or not he should observe them and decide for himself if they were abilities he wanted to use. After all, if they could be used to help people, were they truly evil? Not to mention, he had to take into account, he didn't know anything about the Jedi in truth, only what was there. What if it was just a bias? What if the Jedi just didn't want to tell people things, or keep their members in check? He sighed. He had had those thoughts for a while. After all, he didn't even have a master to teach him. As he heard his mother remind him to get ready, as he quickly prepared to head off to school. We flash over to UA, with Nezu talking to Aizawa. As Aizawa said, "What do you call me here for?" "Nothing much. I wanted to ask you about one of your students." Aizawa sighed. "If it's a Bakugo character, I was going to talk to him about it, make him under..." As Nezu shook his head. "No, it's the other one, the green-haired one." Aizawa looked at him. "You mean the kid with the telekinesis quirk?" "Kinda." As he pulled up an image of Izuku in the hero training. As he said, "Do you have any idea what's up with that saber made out of what seems to be light? It's not labeled on his hero equipment." Aizawa looked at it. "Well, he must have made it." Is there something wrong? Is that thing... As the principal shook his head. "No, it's the fact it's so effective. You would think if he made it, it would be a little, well, shoddier. Well, if he had made it with no assistance. The second thing is All Might wanted me to observe it." Aizawa looked at him. "Was there any particular thing?" "No, All Might picked up on something as he played the footage. Did you notice it?" As Aizawa brought his head closer to the screen and moved it back 5 seconds. As he looked at it and said, "I think." As Nezu nodded, "All Might told me that they were apparently childhood friends, but it was still throwing him off. Seemingly, Izuku was moving before Bakugo even launched his attack. To be fair, someone who knows someone else very well should be able to do that, but to read someone's moves and react that quickly without a quirk that enhances your perception or speed. You think the kid has multiple quirks, or maybe some other?" Snazu said, "Hard to say. With them being childhood friends, it is just possible Izuku can read him like a book. But it still doesn't quite sit right with me." As Aizawa looked at him. "Given the fact that your quirk allows you to calculate incredibly fast, that is kinda concerning. Either way, I want you to keep an eye on him. All Might thinks it might just be nothing, but I've watched all of his moves, and he has a similar reaction time to all of them, which is virtually instantaneous, because he starts moving to react before Bakugo does." As Nezu said, "Well, I need to prepare for my job, since I'm the principal of this school, and a racer. I would recommend you get out there to make sure your students get into the school in time." As Eraserhead sighed. "I was just hoping it would be a couple of them. Is it that bad?" "I doubt they'll be able to get into the building." As the students were trying to make their way into the building, reporters were bombarding them, asking them questions about All Might. As Izuku was getting nearly harassed, he decided to wave his arm and say something he was questioning if he should do. But he did. As he said, "There's no way I can know anything. You'll go and think of something interesting to say." As the reporter seemed to daze out and repeat what Izuku said, as he walked away. As Doria quickly hurried up, he was not thrilled to see even more around the gate. But he quickly saw Eraserhead approaching them, as he told them to basically get lost. Izuku would quickly rush around and get into the building. As he checked his schedule, as it wasn't going to be a very busy day, he hoped to see All Might again. But it seemed that hero class wasn't going to be occurring today. He would hurry along to class, as it was a pretty normal day of school. As he sat for lunch with his newly found friends, Ida Tenya, Ochako Uraraka, and the girl he just knew as Toga. As the question brought around about people's families and quirks. Izuku was surprised he didn't notice it before, but Ida was actually from a generational hero family. And Ida had a speed enhancement quirk with pipes coming out of his legs. Midoriya had to admit, sometimes he did question how exactly did quirks occur? And Ochako's quirk was pretty powerful. As they asked Toga what her quirk was, she was nervous and mentioned that it was technically a type of shapeshifting, as Midoriya was quite excited to see such a vast variety of quirks. But Toga seemed to be nervous about her quirk. Midoriya had seen something similar with people who had a quirk, but it had some embarrassing requirement. Or people had previously ridiculed them for. As he looked over, and Ochaku seemed to have a similar reaction. Ida was hard to read on it, but he didn't push it. As Midoriya almost forgot that no one had asked about his quirk yet, as he kind of mentioned that his quirk's primary ability was telekinesis. As Ochaku said, primary? As he brushed the back of his head. Yeah, it's complicated, but I can do a few different things. Not just levitate objects. Ochaku seemed to nod. As the day would overall go without a hitch. The only thing was Aizawa mentioning they were going to be going on a trip tomorrow. As Midoriya would start to head out, his new friends would walk with him. And Toga would actually mention, "Hey Zuko, you want to hang out sometime outside of school?" Izuku was a bit shocked, as, he's like, sure, we can, do that. As Toga smiled. Okay, so, yeah, I think that's a good part to reintroduce people. And, yeah, basically, this episode is also what happens when you kind of realize, wait a minute, I changed around events. So, yeah. But yes, next time is the USJ attack. And if you like this video or find this concept interesting, please like, share, and subscribe. Small YouTube channels like me love to get crushed by YouTube algorithm. And outside of that, this will be a Spell Re, signing off.